Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's event, From Nakba to Return, with the Green Olive Collective, Zochrot, and the Association for the Defense of the Rights of the Internally Displaced. My name is Erez Bleicher, and I'm the Advocacy Director and Membership Coordinator of the Green Olive Collective, an advocacy, human rights, and tour guiding center committed to a democratic future, the end of the ongoing Nakba, and the Palestinian right of return. We provide communities around the world with insight into the apartheid policies of the occupation and the resources to engage in meaningful advocacy in direct solidarity with Palestinians. Your contributions for today's event will support our urgent work to challenge ongoing policies of displacement, forced transfer, and military occupation in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. We need contributions from you, our wider community, in order to sustain grassroots initiatives with Palestinian communities on the ground, including the replanting of olive trees after arson attacks by settlers, rebuilding homes after demolitions, rehabilitating honeybee farms, and cultivating land threatened with expropriation. Please contribute at sowingsolidarity.com, which I will now put into the chat. We are gathering today in anticipation of Nakba Day on this Friday, May 15th, marking the 78th anniversary of the catastrophe in which over 750,000 Palestinians were displaced and over 500 Palestinian communities depopulated in 1948. Each year, on the day Israel celebrates its Independence Day, thousands of Palestinian citizens of Israel take part in the annual pilgrimage to the sites of Palestinian villages depopulated in 1948 and participate in a larger coordinated march of return organized by the Association of the Defense of the Rights of the Internally Displaced, or ADRID, considered the collective representative of the internally displaced and Palestinian present absentees, as they're sometimes called, within Israel. This year, ADRID decided to cancel the planned march rather than comply with police orders forbidding them from carrying Palestinian flags and limiting participation to 1,000 persons. We are very much honored to join today with Musa Sajir of ADRID and Umar Al-Jubari of Zochrot to discuss the recent police censure and both of their work and the work of their organizations to promote historical memory, practically advance the Palestinian right of return, and build a future in which the rights of Palestinian refugees are honored as part of a larger vision of justice, equality, and collective freedom. In a political climate in which the discussion of the Nakba is often made taboo and increasingly censored and actively criminalized by the Israeli government, both of these organizations play a truly pivotal role in civil society efforts to fracture the walls of denial about the ongoing Nakba, promote historical memory and awareness about the events of 1948, and promote tangible visions of return. We're also particularly glad to focus today on the rights of present absentees and internally displaced Palestinian citizens of Israel, whose status and ongoing displacement is often elided, omitted, or misunderstood in public discourse surrounding the Nakba. So with that, sincere thanks again to you, Umar, and to you, Musa, for joining today and for taking your time with so much happening. And I'll pass first to you, Musa, to share more about the critical work of the Association for the Defense of the Rights of the Internally Displaced and speak with us about the annual March of Return, which the organization has coordinated for close to 30 years. So I'll pass to you to introduce yourself and share more about the work that ADRID does in the March of Return. You should be able to unmute. You just have to unmute yourself. Musa, you're able to turn the sound on. It's a button on the bottom left corner. As always on Zoom, there are tech issues. It's inevitable, but here we go.
Now you hear me?
Aywa, yes, we hear you well. Hi, Musa.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. I am Musa Saghir, one of the internally displaced refugees. My destroyed village is called Husha, which is only 3 kilometers from where I live now. The village was occupied on May 1948. The population, about 300, left under fire to the nearby town Shafa Amr, and part of them continued to Syria to live in a refugee camp called El Yarmouk. My father and my mother left the village with only a mattress and a kilt. They spent the first days in Shafamer in the Catholic monastery. Then they hired a small house. After 26 years, my father signed as if selling about 16 dunams, which were already confiscated, and was given half a dunam to build our own house. My father couldn't adapt himself to the new situation. He was a farmer in his destroyed village, so we lived years of poverty, barely could make ends meet. The second generation, when we began to work, we could make a better life for our families. Talking about ADRID, the mission of ADRID is to facilitate the return of all IDP to their towns and villages. ADRID strives to achieve this by working with the appropriate authorities, using all legal means and its disposal. ADRID is guided by a vision of peace and reconciliation based on justice and equality for all. And it's mandated to raise awareness and support among Palestinians, Jewish and international policy makers, and the general public for this purpose. I'm sorry, I have COPD, so it's difficult for me to talk a long time. The mission of ADRID includes maintaining and preserving and renovating cemeteries and places of worship in the towns and villages, as well as preserving their heritage and spreading knowledge about their issues. The ADRID was began in the 90s by initiative committee, but later in 2000 it was registered in the Ministry of Interior as non-governmental association. For several years, we got financial support from Escaper Fund, but in the last few years, they stopped giving us, and now we are only supported by donation of the friends of the association. Later, maybe I'll talk about the why didn't we make the return parade the last year.
Thank
Okay?
you. Much appreciated. If I can just
Okay.
ask, and you're able to share now, when did you first start becoming active in ADRID and the organizing of the March of Return? How did you come to do this work? Of
Uh,
course,
I be I began in 2005 when ADRID asked me to make the march to my destroyed village, Hoshi. From that time, I am a member of the administration of the association.
كل احترام and all respect to the work you and everyone has
Thank
done over
you.
these years.
Thank you.
I'm curious to ask for the second and third generations of the displaced from your village, how do you all communicate? I know so many times there are family committees. I've learned also from Umar over the years that there are different efforts to preserve memory, to create maps of communities as they once were. Can you tell us about some of the work that happens either around your village in specific or the work that third and second generations are doing now to preserve memory and keep the vision
We,
of
we
return?
still we still have a, a little land there. We go always there. We take the sons and grandsons, and all the village do the same. All the population of the village do the same thing. On Tuesday, the coming Tuesday, I'll be meeting 3 or 4 classes, third class, fourth class from Nazareth who are coming to visit our village. Although they don't belong to it, but this is kind of preserving and raising the awareness of the return to the destroyed villages.
Thank you, Musa. Much appreciated. And we'll come back soon to talk about the last 2 years and this past year
Okay.
and what's taken place. With that, maybe I'll pass it to you, Umar, to introduce yourself and the work of
Okay.
Zochrot, and maybe to give us a bit more also of historical context for the events of 1948 and specifically for the status and reality and lived experience of internally displaced Palestinians. Um, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, thank you very much, Erez. مساء الخير عزيزي موسى. Good evening, everyone. Really, I'm honored to be part again with this panel with the You Green Olive Collective in order to deliver as much as possible the history of the Palestinian Nakba and the need of the promoting the return of the Palestinian refugees as initial and crucial pillar for justice in the future. In this context, I represent the NGO that called Zochrot in Hebrew, which means remembering in English. And I would be glad to share with you some slides. And I prepared a PowerPoint presentation. If it's okay, we can share. So this will help all of us to follow the words that I try to say, and just confirm, please, if you can see the presentation.
Yes, we can.
All right, great.
Thank you.
So this NGO that called, you said, the Zochrot was established, sorry, about 25 years ago in order to raise the awareness about the Palestinian Nakba in Hebrew for the Israeli Jewish society mainly, based on our knowledge that this society is actually blind regarding the Palestinian real history and the facts of 1948 and pre-48 Palestine. And what is interesting that it was established by Israeli Jewish non-Zionist activists, that they were active in the field of doing kind of peace activity or organizing workshops for Palestinians and Israelis, and they realized that what we need to talk about it in order to promote peace is the roots of this situation in Palestine, which is the Nakba. Beside the knowledge, Zochrot calls for responsibility and accountability on the crimes of the Nakba, and to promote the practical return, not only as a right and just, but also as practical political plan that should be implemented in the ground. So this is the real role of Zochrot in general. What we do and how we do this mission, we use different tools. The most important one, or maybe the first one, was to organize, and still to organize tours to one of these destroyed Palestinian localities during the year, and we do monthly open tour for on the Nakba on one of these localities. And in order to expose the facts regarding the Nakba and the 1948 ethnic cleansing and erasure of the Palestinian existence and history, we use data information. We collect information from the archives and different resources and books. We meet historians, we meet people that are aware in the issue, and we meet displaced people like Musa and refugees from outside of Palestine. By the way, I met Musa in different occasions in the past, and one of our tours of Zochrot took place in his village, and we met him there, and he explained his village, which is destroyed totally in these days. And one of the notions that we try to push and to let people realize and understand how the Zionist propaganda managed to cover the Palestinian history in different ways, and they were actually well organized and strong enough in order to convince many people around the world that this is the situation in Palestine, but it was not like that. In fact, one of them is the idea of empty land, and they tried to deliver this idea to in different ways. One of them even by art, when this Mr. Nahum Gutman, a Zionist painter, painted this piece in 1935 describing the view between Tel Aviv and the old city of Jaffa, and he decided to show that as an empty land between the first houses of Tel Aviv and the old city of Jaffa. But in reality, the view that he saw, that this picture, black and white picture, the very beautiful urban neighborhood of Jaffa that called Manshia. But he decided already in 1935 to erase that in order to show the people that this land is empty. To let the people imagine the past before we ask them to imagine the future, we try to show with maps and documents, by the way, very Zionist documents that prove that what they did was ethnic cleansing and a big crime towards the Palestinian people. And we teach them about the Nakba, and to concluding them for them that more than 750,000 Palestinians have been expelled from the area that became the State of Israel, which is a huge number, by the way, instead of 900,000 that's supposed to live in this area that became the Green Line or the State of Israel of today. More than 85% of them have been expelled, which is really big number. Those refugees used to live in about 600 towns and cities and villages. All of them had been almost totally erased, and 95%, even more, of the Palestinian villages had been destroyed in different times with different operations that the Israeli army did, just came and bulldozed the houses of the Palestinians. We for sure know now more than before that the expulsion of the Palestinians is not connected to the Israeli Arab War, because the expulsions of the Palestinian communities started already in December 1947, while the war, the formal war between Israel and the Arab countries, took place in May 15th, 1948. 6 months before the war, the expulsion already started. Inside Israel, the 100,000 Palestinians that remained, or I can say that they survived the ethnic cleansing, remained in their places mostly inside the state of Israel. But 30% of them, 25% to 30%, are IDPs like Musa. But they had been counted as citizens of the state of Israel. The citizenship didn't help them to go back to their original home or land. 5 minutes away from his original village, the citizenship didn't allow him to get back to that home. Israel decided that he is absentee, and his property and his land and his house should be confiscated by the state of Israel, and later on they destroyed even the houses in order to block his hope for return. He has nothing to return to. So it is very important to remember this information, that among the citizens inside Israel are about 25% are IDPs. By the way, these IDPs and the whole Palestinians in Israel lived for 18 years, from 1948 to 1966, in military regime. How we describe a state that has two different systems in order to manage two different populations, one civilian for the Jews and one military regime for the Palestinians. And it was for 18 years inside Israel. This is apartheid. This is the separation between the two different groups, officially by the state of Israel and by the government of Israel. The expulsion of the Palestinians that took place in 1947, 48 mainly, continued even in 1950, 51, 56, and the 60s. In these days, this idea of expulsion of Palestinians still in going. What is important to remember too, that in some cases, some Palestinian families managed to return to their houses when they felt that the situation is quiet and there's no Zionist groups or Israeli soldiers in the area, so they came back. The Israeli military attacked them again and expelled them again. There is no war, there are no clashes, the situation is a little bit quiet. And now we have some documents that some researchers managed to take from the Israeli archives that prove that the Palestinians didn't leave alone, and they didn't leave because they didn't like the place, and they didn't give up their homeland to the Zionist side or to the Israelis. They had been forcibly expelled. And this document talking about refugees that started to come from Gaza Strip towards the villages inside Israel. And there's a list of villages that had been destroyed in 1948 mentioned in this document. The order or the mission of the army is very clear, is to attack these places, to expel the Arab refugees from these villages, to burn and destroy the houses in order to, again, to give the message that there is nowhere to return to. And even in this case, to mine the path that they did when they came to the villages. This happened in the south of the state of Israel, in the area that's known as the envelope of Gaza in these days. And we have another document that talks about the same mission and the same way in the north, with another village that called Hunim. Palestinians in the big cities had been concentrated in small areas, small sections that had been known as ghettos. Israel built ghettos for the Palestinian survivors in these big cities, in Jaffa, in Ramli, in Lid, in Majdal, in Haifa, in Akka, for about 1.5 to 2 years, living in conditions of ghetto. They had been not allowed to leave or to enter this ghetto without the permission of the officer, the Israeli officer in that ghetto. This photo, by the way, from the Ajami ghetto in Jaffa, we see already Israelis that use the Palestinian stores and houses. They are actually observing, they see the Palestinian enclaved Palestinians inside the ghetto, which is terrible in my eyes, that Palestinians live in this enclave, in this area. Now we also have the official file that the term ghetto was used in Hebrew officially by the Israeli government. The idea of expulsion of Palestinians didn't stop by the creation of the State of Israel. It continued after the creation of the State of Israel. Some Palestinian communities had been expelled, as I said, in 1950 and 50s and 51 and the 60s and other times. And we had this document that actually includes the Israeli idea about the expulsion, and also confirmed the transfer of the Palestinians in 1948, when Moshe Dayan, that became a minister in the coming Israeli governments, said in one meeting of his party, Mapai, which was the dominant party at that time, he said that he hopes in the coming years there may be another option to make a transfer for those Arabs from the land of Israel, and he gives the number 170,000. 170,000 is the number of the Palestinian citizens of Israel in 1950. He had a plan, a vision to expel the Palestinian citizens from Israel, not only the other Palestinians that are not considered as citizens. Okay, I skipped this because I mentioned the military regime for 18 years on the Palestinians. And in parallel, the Israeli system did as much it can to erase the Palestinian history and the Palestinian identity of the place. Despite that, we can follow the documents that the Zionists themselves used, and when they used the British map in the first years of the State of Israel, they used the map in English, and this map, the British map, had the names of the Palestinian towns and villages. And when they updated the map, they wrote in Hebrew the new settlements and towns for the Jews that they built, and they marked the Palestinian villages in Hebrew as Harus, which is destroyed. So it was enough for us to take this map and to show that for the Israelis to show that Israel by itself confirmed the existence of Palestinian towns and villages. As part of the ongoing Nakba, erasing the Palestinian identity, we do show the Hebraizing of the names of the areas and the towns and the villages, sometimes in very funny way, to take a name in Arabic and just to convert that with accent to Hebrew, like the village of Annabi that became Anava. And many examples like that. I skipped that. As I said, the destruction and the erasure of Palestinian took place during the years after 1948 in this way, just to bulldoze and to destroy the houses. And dozens of Palestinian villages' ruins are actually inside the Israeli forests and parks. These forests were created in order to hide the Palestinian ruins. Despite that, if we want to make a research on the Nakba, we go around the country and we find the ruins like these photos, the village of Lifta near Jerusalem, the cactus that became a symbol of the Nakba, and the evidence of Palestinian life all over the country. We use the photos. This is the same neighborhood that I showed in the beginning. Manshia had been destroyed in 1948. This is the result of the attack in 1948. And this is the result today of the colonization of this place. It's part of the promenade of Tel Aviv in these days. People can come there, they tour there, and they spend time without knowing the real history of this neighborhood. Some dozens of Palestinian mosques are still in the area, and so let be just clear that about 1,000 Palestinian holy places, shrines, and mosques had been destroyed. But some dozens, about 60 maybe, are around the country, some of them in very bad condition, and they are collapsing from year to year. Some of them are closed for the public and no one can enter, and some of them are used as museums or libraries in the Israeli towns, and even synagogues. I know about dozen of Palestinian mosques that had been converted to synagogues. Even the churches in Kufr Bir'im and Ikrith and Al-Bassa are in very bad situation. Even the community of the IDPs of these villages got the permission to renovate some of these churches, but there are some churches that had been destroyed totally, like the church in El Birwi, the church in Damun. They were destroyed and no one can build them again. Sorry, تفضل موسى بدك تحكي شيء؟
No, just I want from you to raise the case of Ikrit and Bir'am, how they were asked to leave for 2 or 3 weeks because of violation on the borders and to come back to their villages. You can
Please go ahead. Yeah, okay, that's correct. The expulsion of the Palestinians took place in different ways by the Israelis, mainly military attacks, sometimes to send just the threat to terrorize people, some of them to block their access to water or to the city, the big city, for food. And in 2 cases, the 2 villages of Ikrith and Kufr Bir'im in the very north, very close to the border with Lebanon, the Israeli army came to these places and asked the people to leave for 2 weeks. And they promised them to return after the 2 weeks, after the renovation of the border. And the 2 weeks didn't end till today. They live as IDPs, internal refugees, in the Galilee towns and in Haifa, some of them. And they had not been allowed to return. Despite that promise, the Israeli army came to the village and destroyed the houses, as they did in hundreds of Palestinian villages. Even in the case of Ikrith, the community of these 2 villages are Christians, and the military knows that. And in 1951, after this group of refugees sued the Israeli government in the Israeli court, and the Israeli court decided in 1951, in July 1951, that he doesn't see any reason why these people are not returning to their places, except if there is some security reasons. So the army decided there are security reasons, and they declared the area as military zone. And listen to this, how cynical you should be to do this step. In Christmas Eve, 24th of December 1951, while the community of Ikrith are preparing themselves for the prayer and the celebration of the holiday, the Israeli army came to the village of Ikrith and destroyed all the houses of the village. The same evening, in after the Israeli court decided that they might return to the place. So the stories of the Nakba are around us. We try just to expose that and to put the finger in order to open the eyes of the people, of course, that live in the country and people all over the world. Some Palestinian school buildings are still around, but they are used as a branch of Israeli Jewish religion, Chabad movement, or as an office of the JNF. The JNF, one of the arms of the destruction of and the erasure of the Palestinians since 1901. All these towns and villages had cemeteries, graveyards. Who knows what happened to these places? In some areas, like communities in the Galilee, after long term of struggle, they managed to surround part of their cemeteries and managed a little bit to renovate that. They were not allowed to use the cemeteries since 1948 till today. All the IDPs, even they live just 5 minutes away from the village, except few cases like Ikrif and Ber'im, maybe Husha. They got a permission after the military regime ended to use their cemeteries for different reasons. In Husha, because they had a shared cemetery with other Palestinian village that was not expelled in 1948, and because of that, they can see, they can visit, they can reach the cemetery. But around the country, there are hundreds of Palestinian cemeteries that are in very terrible situation. I go around the country, I see how this destruction and vandalism is actually taking more parts and more parts from these graveyards. The most upsetting examples are the projects of the government or municipalities or universities. In the photo on your left, you can see the buildings of the student dorms that the University of Tel Aviv built just 10 years ago on the cemetery of Sheikh Muannis, the destroyed village that the university was built on. And the one on your right is other cynical case in a very big and historical cemetery in West Jerusalem that called Ma'manillah or Mamilla. Part of the cemetery was taken in the 70s, and the Israelis built there the Garden of Independence. And 10 years ago, they started to move other graves in the cemetery, and they built this building that now is finished. It was launched 1 year ago, and this institution is the Museum for Tolerance. So imagine that even these beautiful values had been misused by the Israelis on the top of the Palestinian history. But not only ruins, you can see very beautiful Palestinian architecture and villas and houses that still standing, but colonized by Israelis, families or institutions. These villas in Bir Saba, Beersheba, or in West Jerusalem, or in Tiberias, as you can see. Thanks to the Palestinian refugees and IDPs, we collect these stories of these hundreds of villages. We try to document their testimonies and put them in a booklet to distribute that to the people, mainly in Hebrew and Arabic, sometimes in English, but our website is in 3 languages, and you are invited to read and to see the data in it. The tours that we organize, like these events that you see over here, we try to put some signs with the original name of the place in order just to show a little bit, or to give a life for a few minutes, maybe a few hours, maybe a few days, till someone will come to the area and uproot this sign. So imagine all these signs, actually, after we put them, someone will come and take them out. And remapping the area, we published the only map in Hebrew that someone can read the names of the Palestinian erased villages and towns, and realize where the Israeli town actually was built on the top of what Palestinian villages. For smartphones, we have an app that's called iReturn. It includes the map in 3 languages, but also you can use it as a GPS in order to reach the real location of the non-existing place, which is amazing experience. This is the only GPS that takes you nowhere, actually. There's no any address or something. In these days, actually, we are do that for a few years. We see that we should not stop in telling the story of the past and telling the story of the Nakba. We should promote the return of the Palestinian refugees based on the acknowledgement on the right to return. But it's not only enough to be sorry about the expulsion and to express empathy to the refugees. We need a practical plan to implement the right to return. We don't believe that any peace or any solution will take place in this land without the implementation of the right to return. So we started with some projects. We gathered some Palestinian IDPs, 3rd generation, asking them to imagine their village after the return, how they want to build it. We use the information of the past to put that in the future, and we gave them the freedom of thinking and giving idea how these villages will be built and what are the needs of the Palestinian population in these days, because we raised the questions that a village that had been expelled in 1948, after 70 years or 80 years, the needs of the population is different. The number of the population is different. It's 10 times than since 1948. So we try to open the mind in order to make the idea of returning something feasible, something applicable. We used even this way of writing short stories from the future to imagine the future and to tell that in a story. In a book that called Auda for Palestinian and Jewish writers that wrote stories. And we followed also how the Palestinian refugees insist to implement their right to return. They never give up their right to return. What is known as an action to remind themselves, ourselves, the Israelis and the whole world that the right to return should be implemented is one way is the March to Return that ADRID organizes every year, and also the March to Return that took place in Gaza, very close to the siege of Gaza in 2018 and 21. By the way, the Palestinians' demand to the right to return is based on the international law and the international conventions. Even some new trend or new way of thinking about return is to plan some villages as we did with other groups. Recently, there are different initiatives of doing this planning return. I can mention Dr. Salman Abu Sitta and his institution, Palestine Land Society, that organizes kind of competition between Palestinians among Palestinian architectures for the last 5-6 years. And I witnessed this young woman, Maha, a few years ago when she got the first prize, and I followed the news during the Israeli recent genocidal attack, and she and her family were attacked and she was killed. I see that as a symbolic thing, how when you kill a Palestinian person, you also kill more than the person. You kill the dreams, you kill the hope, you kill the action that she wanted to take for her rights and for her return. The last thing is that in these days, we are promoting to accumulate more and more ideas of practical return. We are in the middle of a process with a small group of about 13, 15 Palestinians and non-Zionist Jewish, I can say, to think about the return from Gaza. In these days, during the genocide in Gaza, the proposals of different bodies to renovate and to rebuild what Israel destroyed in Gaza, we think that it's an opportunity to remind the whole world that 70% of the Palestinians in Gaza are refugees from 1948 expulsion, and they have the right to return. And if you implement the right to return according to the international law, you will solve a lot of the problems of Gaza. But the international community should take responsibility on this issue and start to think about the real justice that should be done for the Palestinians. The most important one is the implementation of the right to return. So I will not go in details for the plan that they offered, this group offered. They learned about the Gaza Strip that is actually product of the Nakba. It was the Gaza district was much bigger and wider. The Gaza Strip is just a narrow place that thousands or hundreds of thousands of Palestinians had been concentrated in that place. Many refugees, about 200,000 Palestinians had been pushed to Gaza Strip in 1948, while the population of Gaza Strip in 1948-49 was about 60,000. They had to welcome and to absorb 200,000. And this is the reason how this strip is so crowded with people since 1948. These photos are from the Gaza when the refugees reached there. Most of them live in 8 refugee camps, official refugee camps, and other camps in very terrible conditions. So we believe also as Zochrot, if you want to free the oppressed people and the expelled people of Palestine, you should implement the justice. And this also the way to free the colonizers of being colonizers, or the criminals to maintaining their crimes, and give the opportunity for them for real thing that you can build a better future based on equality and real democracy, and giving back the rights and the property of the Palestinians. The people just imagined that the Museum of the Eitzel, one of the criminal Zionist organization pre-1948, they had museum in a Palestinian house. So you can take the house and reorganize it as a place for returnees and for justice. The same in another smaller village in the south called El Khalasa. You can imagine that they took one of the destroyed buildings that was used as a mill, and they created a public building to start gathering the returnees in that place. So with this, I hopeful vision, I can stop here, and thank you very much, and sorry if it was too long.
Thank you, Umar. Truly invaluable. And we're coming together today as a community of people across borders and around the world who are committed to making real and investing in a practical imagination around return, in making real the imagination and architectural brilliance of Maha and so many others who have practically oriented towards what a future of collective freedom could look like. And if anyone is ever able to attend a tour with Umar in one of the depopulated villages, I can attest from my own experience, it will shift your political horizons. And I can't recommend the booklet, Auda, Imagined Testimonies for Possible Return, enough. It truly is transformative. But I do want to, of course, return to you, Musa, and bring us back to the events of the last year and the last 2-3 weeks also, and ask you, Musa, if you firstly, of course, want to add anything in particular to what Umar shared that you feel is important, we'd love to hear. And if you want to share more about specifically the March of Return this year and the year before and how you experienced it.
Okay, thank you. Just to state some of the programs of ADRID. As I said, ADRID has no financial resources. So although in spite of that, we made a lot of things toward the case of return. First of all, we had a program for women. We called it Women on the Path of Return. We took women to visit all kind of villages with a guide and meeting people who's from the village who's still live. Also, we took groups of young people to increase their awareness of the case of the destroyed villages. Yeah. Also, we made oral history of the villages. We hired a lady who visited all people she can visit and collected live testimonies from them. Of course, but the big thing we do is the annual return march, which is very important event for all Palestinians inside Israel, because thousands of them participate in the march, and it is the only event that unite all the Palestinians in spite of their ideas, in spite of their belongingness to this party or that party. According to the last March this year, the police, because of security situation, asked us not to bring more than 1,000 people to the march, but we know that between 25 to 35 people generally participate in this march. Besides, we also, as a association, we were afraid about people. We didn't want to endanger them because of a lot of shrapnels, fragments of rockets fall in Galilee. But before this situation, also the police demanded very difficult things to do, and they cost a lot of money. They asked us to bring permission from firefighting, permission from ambulance and the crew of ambulance, to hire engineers to plan the path of the, and all this cost a lot of money that we don't have. Thank you.
Thank you. And they also, if I understood correctly, and you mentioned they ordered that Palestinian flags not be used in the march?
That's right. Not this year only. Before that, even they still consider the Palestinian flag as the flag of PLO. But everybody knows that this is the flag of the Palestinian people.
And as always, this came up in things Umar shared also, the security logic and measures of the military to stop people from coming back to their villages, even when the courts say there's no justification for it. Now in the West Bank, and Umar said, then they declared it a closed military zone. Now that's very common practice, of course, in the West Bank, and anything under security, the military can move forward at its whim. So also around freedom of speech or any expressions of political assembly, anytime it chooses, security emergency powers can be invoked and this is unconscionable. Uh,
Right.
I know that this year, Musa, despite the police orders, uh, family committees and others and ADRID organized instead of a centralized demonstration in March.
Yes, visits to the villages.
Do you want to talk about
That's right. Yes,
visits to the villages? And
yes, yes.
I heard there was an online commemoration. I'd love to
We,
hear more.
yes, we made a lot of visits to the village. We asked the people from each village to visit their village. We tried to give them transportation to the place on the account of the of ADRID, and at least 30 villages were visited by their people, the people who belong to these villages.
Incredible. And our last question, you mentioned an oral history. Are people able to access that anywhere in Arabic, in English? Or is that located somewhere that people can find? Such an
It is
incredible thing.
no, it is still in Arabic, but we need a lot of money to translate it to other languages and to publish it. We still have it in some computer in the ADRID place.
Incredible. Well, I'm sure there are people here who do speak Arabic, and I'd love to think together about how to make it available to everyone. Such an invaluable resource. Unfortunately, we're getting short of time. There's so much to discuss and so much to explore in all of this. I guess I want to ask you, Musa, if there's anything else you want to share that you feel is most important for people around the world to understand about the March of Return, about the experience of internally displaced Palestinians that maybe sometimes you find people aren't aware of.
Uh, you know, I meet people far away from their destroyed villages. I feel how they think about the past, how they hope to return to their villages, still thinking about the churches, about the mosques, and they still as if they live there. Mhm.
They do emotionally inhabit
Yes.
their
Mhm.
of it and of the vision of return. Um, Umar, is there anything else that you want to share as a last note or something you want to highlight for people to take with them from today as we continue to build this vision forward?
Well, I followed ADRID, by the way, for many years, and we tried from the beginning to make cooperation with them. And as Musa described, it's not the most organized and rich organization, but despite that, I can say that the event that they organize in the same day of the what's so called the independence of Israel is the biggest event in the world in order to remind the people about the Nakba in that day. And really thousands of Palestinians, mainly young generation, took part in this march. But when the Israeli police canceled, actually, or forced them to cancel this 2 years marches, they organized many smaller visits and marches in different villages, and we, as Zochrot, joined one of them. But I will connect that to the time of the military regime when the Palestinians inside Israel lived in for 18 years under military regime. The Israeli I don't know, again, cynical way treating the Palestinians. They gave just one day in the year as a freedom day, and they allowed the people under military regime to move in the country freely. And this day was the Independence Day of Israel. It's amazing how they wanted to shape the mind of the Palestinians that the freedom of yours in one day in the year, it's the freedom of the Israel that was built on the account of them. And then the IDPs used that free day in order to visit their original village that had no way to visit it during the year. So I think this now it's obvious and clear, and we do that every year, but it was kind of underground practice during the military regime.
I understand correctly, ADRID has organized the March of Return each year, the last 30 years, under the slogan, "Their independence is our Nakba," drawing attention exactly to that dynamic. Well, thank you so much, Umar, and thank you, Musa. And Umar, I think that drawing attention to the military regime is so important also in understanding all this and is so often left out of the conversation. People aren't aware that from 1948 to 1966, a system of military rule existed for Palestinian citizens, and the system and apparatus of the military regime in the lands of 1948 was transferred to the West Bank with military governors, closed military zones. How this took place and continues to shape the entire region is very important, and I hope another time we can explore that in full depth. Musa, it was truly, truly an honor. Charafna, nice to meet you today, and I hope it will be the first of many conversations personally and also with the Green Olive Collective. We would love to find ways to partner and support the incredible work you and ADRID does. And yeah, with that, I'll close by thanking each of you for being here today on behalf of the Green Olive Collective, Zochrot and ADRID. As I mentioned at the start of our time, your contributions for today's event will support urgent work to challenge ongoing policies of forced transfer, displacement, and military rule. They will help sustain grassroots initiatives with Palestinian communities that are facing everyday lethal settler violence in the West Bank and working to remain on their lands and return to their lands. You are also invited, of course, to join the Green Olive Solidarity Network. In this time of continuing anguish, it's often difficult to know how to practically express solidarity and tangibly support Palestinians on the ground. That is why we launched an advocacy and mutual aid network that allows people around the world to maintain direct and sustained connections with Palestinians and directly support on-the-ground activism. I shared a link to that also in the chat if people want to learn more. And if people want to join on the ground with incredible human rights defenders like Musa and like Umar, like Zochrot and like ADRID, and come to meet in person, everyone is welcome. And please be in touch with us anytime at Green Olive Tours, the Green Olive Collective, to join our missions and delegations, tours advancing solidarity across borders and a democratic future. And with that, we hope everyone here has good and quiet days, and we will send a recording of this invaluable conversation to everyone here tomorrow. Much thanks and have lovely days. See you very soon, we hope, in upcoming events. Thank you, Musa.
Thank you.
Have a quiet night.
Thank you also.
And thank you, Umar. Talk soon.
Thank you very much.
Good night.